Boys, today I am talking about one of the things that I'm the most passionate about of all the topics that I talk about on any of my channels, right? I've spoken several times about my 4 big life goals, and one of those is to get ranked choice voting implemented in the United States. The reason for that is I genuinely believe that this is the solution to all of the problems that we see in this country. The corruption, the polarization, the gerrymandering, the extremely biased media and the lying media, literally almost every problem that we see in the United States today could be fixed by ranked choice voting, in my opinion. And I will be covering why in this video. Now, in another video, I'll tell you why it has to be ranked choice voting and not something like board account or star voting or all these other methods that you guys bring up every time I bring up ranked choice voting. So this is going to be a probably several part series, but those are the 2 videos that I'm going to film first. And if there's any of my videos that you guys are going to watch, I seriously request that it is this one, right? I'm so passionate about this because I do love America. It's just clearly going in the wrong direction, and I think that ranked choice voting could be the thing that steers it back. That is why when very famous debater Charlie Kirk came to my campus, this is the topic that I was like, you know what, I'm going to debate him on. And I did everything in my power to get in front of him to talk to him about it. Now, unfortunately, I was very nervous. I wasn't very well spoken at this time. I still was able to slightly change his mind if you guys have seen the debate. But regardless, I'm very passionate about this, and this is why. For starters, what are the problems? And for me, this is the biggest one, right? People look at both of these candidates, most of Americans, and say, wow, this is between dog shit and the devil, right? Which one am I going to pick? And unfortunately, if you're picking between dog shit and the devil, you got to pick dog shit. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are voting for a candidate that they don't truly support. And that is one thing. I'm going to go on a real quick tangent that I get really frustrated with when you guys join my open debate lives on Friday and you're like, who did you vote for? Well, just tell me who you support. And I say every single time, I don't support either. And it's like, oh, then why'd you vote for somebody? Because if you are picking between like the mustache man from Germany or literally Satan himself, I am willing to bet you would vote in that election and you would vote for the mustache man because he is going to be better than the other guy, than the devil himself. But that doesn't mean you support him, right? So that's kind of my point, right? Americans are forced to vote for somebody that they don't truly support. They are lying on their ballot, right? The ballot is supposed to be, who do you think is the best candidate for president? And that should be who you write. But they're not doing that. They're picking the best candidate who has a chance of winning. This is the problem. And the 2-party system also promotes demonization. The better strategy for winning the election is not to talk about good policy. It is to fearmonger and say the other person is going to end the world. Because what is going to get more views? Me saying for 1 hour on Fox News or CNN, hey, this is the best economic policy to balance our budget. Nobody's going to watch that. Nobody cares. But if I say, if this person is president, World War III is going to come and the entire world is going to collapse, people are going to watch that. They're going to freak out. They're going to feel emotional, and they're going to vote for you so that the other guy doesn't become president. You cannot have a voting system that literally promotes fear-mongering. You want a voting system that promotes people to talk about good policy, because when they're forced to talk about good policy, they will come up with better policy. Another issue is the media, right? The media is now also polarized because, once again, what is going to get more views? Painting people like this, which honestly, there's probably 30% of Americans that either see Trump as this guy or Kamala as a extreme communist. That is a massive issue, right? First of all, that is false on both ends. Trump is not literally this guy, and Kamala is not literally a communist. But the fact that media has been able to portray it so that large chunks of America believe this is horrendous. And why is that? The 2-party system, which is caused by our current voting system. Now, polarization is growing, right? This is just 100% a fact. I actually think that this is a very accurate representation of polarization in the United States and how it has grown. A lot of people disagree, right? I've heard people say that the left is in the middle and the right is in the middle. Neither party is in the middle right now. They are both drifting further in their direction. But I think that this is a very good representation of where the parties have been at over the last few years. Regardless of whether you agree or disagree, the point is there, and that is the parties are drastically drifting apart, and that is a problem. There's almost zero issues that they would agree on, right? Even no-nonsense issues, people will disagree just because the other side is pushing it harder. That's a problem. It's not about working together anymore. Another thing that is caused by the lack of ranked choice voting is gerrymandering. And in a moment, I will get into what ranked choice voting is and how it reduces this two-party system. I just want to talk about all the problems first. Gerrymandering. Right, in Republican states, you see these really long spaghettis that are trying to get multiple cities together. In Democrat states, you see a ton of spaghettis around cities. That way they can spread the Democrats into as many different districts as possible. It's a problem. One thing I do want to note is that these maps are not necessarily today's date, right? This is an older map of North Carolina. This is an older map of Illinois. They just redistricted not too long ago. But the point still stands. Gerrymandering is a massive issue. The point of districts is supposed to be, hey, I live in a rural part of Illinois, and I want somebody to represent me as a rural Illinois resident on the national stage. That does not happen at all, right? Instead, if you live in this rural part of Illinois, guess who's representing you? A guy who lives right here in Chicago, who lives a very different life from you. That is not the point. And I'm not just picking on Democrats here. Republicans, once again, do the exact same thing. This is not supposed to be a partisan video. If you make it partisan in the comments, that's all I got for you. But if you had a three-party system, you can't just redraw the lines. Well, you can redraw the lines if you have a majority, but no party is really going to have the majority right now, right? The problem is right now, if you are the winning party, you have the majority. There's only two parties. Therefore, somebody has to have over 50% unless you both have exactly 50%, which is never going to happen. So the moment that you have over 50%, I'm going to make sure that I have over 50% next time. And I'm going to redraw the districts so that I am going to dominate every single election from here on out. And then you end up with this. But if you have three parties, now the biggest party is probably only going to have like 40%. And the other two combined will have like 30% each. And you can't redraw the districts with 40%. And if you have a really unfair map like this one, what's going to happen is the other two parties are going to be like, hey, this is really unfair. Let's us two redraw it and work together to redraw fair districts. And then that's what's going to happen, right? Gerrymandering would literally be eliminated the moment a third party is added. Now, why can't a third party be added? And the reason is spoilers, right? This is the most famous recent spoiler. His name is Ross Perot. But essentially what a spoiler is, I'm just going to use Republicans because they're red, Democrats because they're blue. Let's say Republicans have 60% of the vote and Democrats have 40%. So clearly Republicans are the more wanted party in this case scenario. But another Republican joins the ballot. He's like, hey, I don't care that Donald Trump won the primaries. I am going to run too because I think I'm better. And a lot of Americans agree. They also think he's better. But now the issue is the Republicans are split. Let's say Trump gets 35% and the other guy gets 25%. Well, guess what? The Democrats now get 40%. And even though overall most people would prefer one of these two over this person is going to win. That is an issue, right? It promotes people to lie on their ballot and vote for the guy who just won the primary, even though they like somebody else better. That is not how the election is supposed to work. Another famous president who won off spoilers is one of the greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln. Now, if you look just at the Electoral College, you'd be like, oh, he didn't win off spoilers. He won a majority of the Electoral College votes because you needed like 156 to win or something. Sort of, yes. But the issue is there's a lot of people who thought that Stephen A. Douglas was the best candidate for president, but they didn't vote for him, once again, because they knew he wasn't going to win, right? He's not going to get that many Electoral College votes. And Abraham Lincoln was very smart in his campaigning because he said, make me your second favorite candidate. I don't need to be your first. At least make me your second favorite. And a lot of people would be like, hey, these two candidates don't really have a chance of winning. What if I vote for Lincoln? And because of that, he ended up winning. Thank God he won. This is an example of a good time where a spoiler won. But if some other person had used that strategy, maybe America would look very different today. So, ranked choice voting. What is it? And how does it work? And I could have chosen a million different examples online that just show ranked choice voting is the best thing of all time. But I chose one that shows that sometimes, while it does pick a better candidate, it's not always the perfect candidate because I want to be transparent and honest with you guys, right? No voting system is perfect. There's like Arrow's theorem or something like that that mathematically proves it's impossible to have a perfect voting system. But how does ranked choice voting work? And I can't draw on my screen, unfortunately. So I'm going to do this. That I can draw. Draw. So, essentially what you would do is you would rank your favorite people on the ballot. So, essentially this is a colony on Mars and they have to pick where they're going to put their like primary station where they meet every week or something. And obviously, North makes the most sense because they're in the middle. But if you're West, you're going to say, hey, I like West the best, North second best, then South, then East. And they would rank it like this. South would say, oh, I like South, and then East, and then North, and then West. And everybody would rank it. And the way ranked choice voting works is the person with the least first place votes. So East would be eliminated from everybody's ballot. And then your new vote would go to the next highest person on the ballot. So now East is voting for South. So now South has 32 votes and North has the least. So they are eliminated from everybody's ballot. And now South has all of these votes. They have a majority and the base would move to South, right? Now, obviously, North is the best. Okay, first let's do this. Our current voting system would just be all these people vote for West, all these people vote for North, South, East, and West would end up winning, right? Obviously, the worst for all of these people. South is slightly better because now a lot of people are close, but North would be best, right? Just showing ranked choice voting isn't always going to pick the absolute best candidate, but it is going to pick a much better candidate. And once again, this is like a cherry-picked example to show how ranked choice voting doesn't pick the best example. In most cases, it will pick the best person. But the biggest thing is there's incentive to be honest on your ballot, which is very, very important. And candidates need to seek a broader appeal rather than just trying to be the most polarizing candidate, right? That's no longer a winning strategy. There's also other forms of ranked choice voting, which I'll get into in my next video, right? You, instead of eliminating the person with the least first place votes, you could eliminate the person with the most disliked votes, which isn't the strategy I like. You could have automatic finalists where you'll notice there isn't actually an example here. Yeah, there is. So if South is eliminated first, North is now in the top 2 of every ballot, every single one. Therefore, they are an automatic finalist and they can't be eliminated next because they're everybody's second favorite or higher, and they would end up winning, right? There's all sorts of different ways to change around ranked choice voting, but I'll talk about that in the next video. Back to my normal slideshow. The other great thing about ranked choice voting is it literally promotes a tone shift, which I've been talking about a lot, right? Currently, the tone is how can I demonize the other person the best? But with ranked choice voting, you want to be the second favorite candidate on a lot of people's ballots. And if you're just attacking people all the time, sure, you'll be the favorite on more ballots, but you'll be nobody's second favorite because you're attacking everybody else's favorite person. So now the complete tone shift is how can I try and be the most liked candidate? And in a Minneapolis mayoral election where they had recently created ranked choice voting, there were 14 people in the primary, and they were so nice that they literally sang Kumbaya together at the end of the primary. That would never happen, right? At the end of a current debate stage, it's like a UFC event. You've got Trump with like security surrounding him because he wants to throw hands with Ted Cruz. He wants to murder that man. But in this, they literally sang Kumbaya together. Let's watch this video. Now, I will say this is a pretty shitty YouTube video.
Choice voting won't only change the way we vote as citizens, but it could also change the way our candidates campaign. Sure, you want to be somebody's first choice, but if you aren't, you definitely want to be their second or their third. The city of Minneapolis has been using ranked choice voting for almost 9 years, and the city clerk says he's seen a noticeable shift in campaigns.
No one wanted to potentially lose the second or third choice voters from their competitors. And so the tone and rhetoric of the campaign was much more focused on policy and issues and priorities, what you would do as mayor, and less about the traditional more attack ads against their opponents.
The rhetoric,
which is what we are seeing in mass today. And this is in 2013, before the time of Trump, which really expedited
that at one point in the 2013 mayoral debate, the candidates linked arms and literally sang Kumbaya.
Really corny, but it just goes to show how a voting system can completely change the tone of how people campaign and make them work together better. Another example, right? This is not a great example because Mamdani would have won regardless. He won a majority of the vote. But imagine if Mamdani in his entire campaign was just attacking the crap out of these two, and he's only like the 40% favorite. And if we implemented ranked choice voting, he would not have won that election. Now, I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, right? Overall, Mamdani, I think, he balanced the budget. He's done a lot of great things, right? This is, once again, not my goal to villainize or promote any candidates. This is just an example. But if he was attacking these two, all of his voters, their second choice would have been Cuomo. All of Cuomo's second choice would have been Silwa. Whoever were eliminated first, all of their votes would have gone to the other person, and that person would have won if Mamdani had attacked them all of the time. Now, a lot of people will say, right, no, it's just politicians are evil. It's not the system, but system shapes behavior. Good people will play evil games to win bad incentive systems, right? It no longer goes from how do I get people to hate the other side, and it's a complete tone shift to how do we become likable to a broader base, right? The example that I have here is the shot clock, right? The shot clock didn't always exist in the NBA. It wasn't always 24 seconds, I don't believe. I think it was longer, and then they've shortened it and things like that. When they introduced the shot clock, the entire strategy of the NBA changed. Before it was how slow can we play, try and tire out the defense, and then they add the shot clock, and you have to completely change your strategy, right? The rules that you have to abide by are going to shape the systems of your behavior. If we change the election system, it is going to completely change the strategy for the better. Clearly, the strategy that is being promoted by our current voting system is not good. Ranked choice voting is the solution. I've already covered this, but the media follows incentives too, right? We don't have a good source that is like, wow, these guys are just objective on every issue. I can't think of one. It's either a right-leaning source, which they only really have one, or a left-leaning source where they have a bunch of smaller ones, right? Massive issue. When people become divided, we also get more radical, right? Great examples on both sides. The tragic passing of Charlie, right? You could absolutely disagree with all of his things. You could think that he was promoting evilness. I think open debate is a good thing. And I think that killing somebody who just has open debate, even if you strongly disagree with them, is terrible. January 6th, same thing, right? Wanting to take out the current standing vice president because he doesn't want to overturn an election is absurd. These radical things only happen when we become this polarized. And if we keep getting more and more radical, look into what started the Civil War, we are getting tremendously close. Counter arguments against ranked choice voting. And I'll get into this more in the other video as well, but this is primarily the ones that Charlie Kirk used. And the first one is it's more complicated, right? Right now you just fill in a bubble next to your favorite person. Now you have to rank people, you have to know how many candidates to rank. First of all, there should only be 4 candidates on the presidential ballot. That is what I'm promoting, right? If there are more than 4, I think that there are going to be too many candidates to rank, and that will cause issues. But I strongly believe that over 85% of Americans can have 4 candidates, and they will be able to properly represent who their actual favorites are of those 4 candidates. People rank things all of the time. Think about how often you see people do tier lists. They rate things out of 10. Ranking is in our nature. You can look at 4 candidates and be like, oh yeah, this is my favorite, second favorite, third favorite, fourth favorite, and fill out that ballot completely fine. I also just want to say, this tier list is absurd. I did not make this tier list. I just looked up fast food tier list online. Taco Bell at 1, fine. I get it. A lot of people like it. Absurd. Absurd to me, right? McDonald's in S tier is also just crazy, right? To me, it's good, but in S tier, McDonald's, are you being serious? And how does somebody who liked Taco Bell also like Panera Bread? Who is this human being? Who is this human being? I'm not a big cold sub guy, but Jersey Mike's and Firehouse, I mean, fair takes. I would personally disagree, but fair takes. Honestly, the rest of it I think is fine. I think Shake Shack is a bit low, right? I think Shake Shack, I mean, they're renowned for having one of the best buns. If we're factoring in price, sure, I would get that. But if we're just going off taste alone, it should be higher. Never had Bojangles, but I've heard Cookout is outstanding. I've heard Cookout is amazing. I'm amazed it's this low. I've never had it. Buffalo Wild Wings in F tier. Oh, I don't know. He hasn't tried it. Okay. Another argument against it is it takes longer to tally, right? I can pretty much promise you that getting our presidential election results a week later than we get them today is better than a civil war. Can we all agree on this? This is a non-issue. And then another one is it's not perfect, right? If we go back to this example that I showed you guys earlier, right? We're not picking the perfect person, but it is clearly better than what we have today. And we have this massive issue of, well, here's an issue with this thing that you're promoting, so let's not do it. That is horrendous reasoning in my opinion, right? Just because something is not perfect doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, right? If it's better than what we have today, we should implement it. And I hate this line of reasoning because you're never going to find something that's perfect. It's about implementing better policy, not implementing perfect policy. The second you try and implement perfect policy, nothing will ever get passed and will forever sit where we are today. In conclusion, America has a lot of issues, and I seriously believe that this one policy change can fix all of them. As for what specifically I am suggesting this is how I see it working. And there's two forms of ranked choice voting I think will work, and I'll cover this in the next video. But one of those two forms of ranked choice voting is implemented first at the electoral level. So we would keep the electoral college, and the person with the least electoral college votes is eliminated. And then you go to the state level, you recalculate, and then you go to the new electoral college, you recalculate one more time at the state level, and then there's a winner, right? Because there's 4 candidates, you eliminate one, you eliminate the other, and then it's between 2. So you don't re-vote every time. You just fill in the ballot one time, and then all of this is just done by math. At least electoral is eliminated, recalculate, so on and so forth. Another big complaint is people would like mess up because you have to bubble in 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and 1-4. And what if they go 1-2-2-3? Is their ballot eliminated? What happens? And can you leave candidates off? No and no. The way the ballot would work is if you have exactly 4 candidates on the presidential stage, there are 24 possible ways that you can rank those candidates. Your ballot would just have a list of all 24, right? The first 6 would have Trump as the first candidate, and then all the different possible rearrangements of the other 3. And then Kamala and all the different possible rearrangements of the other 3. That way you are for sure getting your first favorite person correct, and it's not that confusing. You just bubble in one spot with the ranking that you think makes the most sense. It's not that confusing. You're still just bubbling in one thing. I mean, there's a million other like mini fixes, right? Capping out how much money you can spend on a presidential campaign and adding term limits, and there's a million different policies that can be enacted that can save America right now. But this is the one that is the easiest, the most no-brainer, and could be done in probably the next presidential campaign the moment it is enacted. I don't see why we wouldn't do this. And if we as Americans can kind of rally behind an issue like this, I strongly believe that we can get it to happen. Obviously, I'm just a really small voice, but I'm very passionate about this. It's one of my 4 life goals. And I really do think that at some point in my lifetime, the U.S. will get this enacted, and we'll see a massive shift of positive change. Yeah, if you guys would like to debate this, I do open debates on literally everything every single Friday on TikTok Live and hopefully YouTube Live as well in the future. So I love you guys. Hop in one of those debates. Let's hash it out. I can promise you that I could debate this with literally anybody. I love you. I'm out of here. Peace.